Avengers Secret Wars is about to become 2 movies. Yeah, you heard that right. And if you think that's the only bombshell dropping today, you're dead wrong, because we've also got some absolutely insane details about Doomsday's runtime that are going to blow your mind, so you better strap in. New leaks just dropped, and they're coming straight from John Roa on the Hot Mic podcast. Now, this is the same insider who first reported that Hulk and Punisher are going to show up in Spider-Man Brand New Day, so his track record speaks for itself. The man knows his stuff. According to his sources, Marvel Studios is seriously considering splitting Avengers Secret Wars into 2 separate films. And before you start thinking this is just wild speculation or clickbait, industry insider Daniel RPK backed it up too, though he added his own interesting twist by claiming the decision depends entirely on how well Avengers Doomsday performs at the box office. But here's where that theory completely falls apart when you actually think about it. Secret Wars is already scheduled to start filming this summer in the UK, and Doomsday drops in December of this year. That means principal photography for Secret Wars will likely be wrapped up before Doomsday even hits theaters. So how exactly would box office numbers from Doomsday influence a decision that's already been made during production? The timeline just doesn't add up. Sure, you could argue they might push Secret Wars back a few months or even a full year based on Doomsday's reception, but that creates an absolute nightmare scenario when it comes to scheduling. We're talking about a cast that's going to be triple the size of Doomsday's already massive ensemble, and anyone who's ever worked in production knows that coordinating schedules for that many A-list actors is basically impossible. Plus, let's be completely real here. Doomsday is going to make at least $1.5 billion, probably way more than that. There's literally no universe where it underperforms so badly that it would kill Secret Wars' 2-part plans. But let's actually break down what splitting Secret Wars into 2 movies would mean and whether it could even work in the first place. The answer is pretty obvious when you think about it. Of course it could work. A film with the scope and sheer magnitude of Secret Wars absolutely needs room to breathe and develop its storylines properly. If Marvel doesn't want to create a 4-hour movie that feels bloated and exhausting to sit through, then splitting it into 2 separate 2.5-hour films makes perfect sense from both a creative and practical standpoint. And here's the thing people really need to understand. When Marvel says they're adapting Secret Wars, they're definitely not just pulling exclusively from Jonathan Hickman's run. Yeah, that storyline focused heavily on more intimate character pairings and the intense rivalry between Reed Richards and Dr. Doom, which is incredible material. But Marvel's also going to pull major elements from the original Secret Wars comics from the 80s. You know, the ones where the Beyonder basically played with all the heroes and villains like action figures and made them fight each other like some kind of cosmic child throwing the ultimate tantrum. That's not even an exaggeration. The Beyonder in those comics was literally written as this juvenile, all-powerful entity who was just experimenting with everyone for his own amusement. And that's before we even talk about what Secret Wars really means for Marvel cinema as a whole. Not just the MCU or Marvel Studios specifically. We're talking about bringing together nearly 40 years of Marvel movies on the big screen, from Blade all the way to the X-Men films, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy, the Fantastic Four movies, all of it. Marvel clearly wants to give these legacy characters a proper send-off by tying everything together and saying they've always been part of the same multiverse. Thanks to Spider-Man No Way Home, Multiverse of Madness, and Deadpool and Wolverine, we already know that crossover events can absolutely work when they're done right. And with multiple reports confirming that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and Hugh Jackman's Wolverine are both appearing in Doomsday, you can bet your bottom dollar that Marvel is considering every single major Marvel character from the last 4 decades for Secret Wars. Especially when you factor in the whole incursion storyline and battle world concept where only the strongest variants survive. If entire universes are colliding and being destroyed, then of course these legacy heroes are going to show up to fight for their survival. There's already major buzz going around that we're going to see some kind of battered and broken Dr. Doom moment, something that really mirrors his most desperate and vulnerable comic book appearances, where he's been pushed to his absolute limits. And speaking of confirmed roles, multiple sources are reporting that Tom Holland, Tobey Maguire, Hugh Jackman, and Ryan Reynolds will all have major, substantial parts in Secret Wars that actually matter to the overall story, which is absolutely wild when you think about it. Although it's pretty strange that Andrew Garfield apparently isn't involved at all, and that honestly feels like a massive missed opportunity, considering how much fans loved his portrayal and how well he fit into No Way Home. But if this is Marvel's way of replacing or reimagining the Spider-Man storyline from Hickman's Secret Wars comic run, then it could still work incredibly well. Just imagine all the potential interactions between these four characters and how entertaining that's going to be. You already know they're definitely going to pay off that hilarious Spider-Man joke from Deadpool and Wolverine about the web slinging. And there's absolutely no way Marvel doesn't at least try to give Tom Holland the symbiote suit during Secret Wars if they don't already do it in Brand New Day first. Just picture this for a second. Peter Parker resurrecting from the grave wearing a black symbiote suit, perfectly recreating that absolutely iconic panel from Kraven's Last Hunt where he claws his way out of his own tomb. That image is burned into every single Spider-Man fan's memory, and seeing it play out in live action would be genuinely incredible. Although, to be completely honest, I'd actually rather see Marvel save that specific moment for an actual proper Kraven's Last Hunt adaptation in Spider-Man 5, especially now that Sony's finally playing nice with Marvel again, and they can actually do these storylines justice. No more of this Aaron Taylor Johnson playing Kraven without any trace of a Russian accent nonsense. Just give us a proper, truly comic-accurate adaptation that actually respects the source material and understands what made that story so powerful in the first place. So yeah, when you look at the sheer scope and magnitude of what Secret Wars could potentially be, the two-part structure absolutely makes sense on paper. Whether they actually need to go that route is a completely different question that we probably won't have a real answer to until we actually see Doomsday and can judge how much story they're trying to tell. Now, here's where things somehow manage to get even crazier than everything we've already covered. According to John Roa again, Avengers Doomsday could reportedly run close to 3 full hours, maybe even longer than that. And honestly, I could absolutely see that runtime bloating even more as we get closer to the actual release date. Keep in mind, we still have a full 11 months until this movie finally hits theaters in December, and there are already multiple reports floating around about reshoots happening. When you actually look at the absolutely stacked cast Marvel has assembled and all the different teams that are going to be involved, the original Avengers, the new Avengers team, the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, it becomes crystal clear that this story desperately needs serious breathing room to work properly. You simply cannot throw all these characters and storylines together and expect everything to gel naturally in just 90 minutes or even 2 hours. But here's the real kicker that people need to understand. Doomsday is literally just going to be the appetizer for the main course. Secret Wars is going to be Doomsday completely cranked up to 11 on absolute steroids, with twice the chaos, 3 times the stakes, and 4 times the emotional weight. There are just so many different storylines that desperately need proper resolution and explanation. How exactly is Robert Downey Jr. playing Dr. Doom? Is it a variant of Tony Stark from another universe who went down a much darker path, or is it something completely different? What's the real deal with this brewing civil war between the old guard Avengers and the new team that's been assembled? Why exactly is Franklin Richards involved with the Fantastic Four storyline? And what role does his reality warping power actually play? Why are Sentinels apparently decimating and wiping out the X-Men? And most importantly, how do literally all roads lead back to Dr. Doom as the central figure? That's an absolutely massive amount of narrative weight for just one single movie to carry effectively. But here's some genuinely good news that's going to make every Spider-Man fan out there breathe a huge sigh of relief. Alex Perez over at Cosmic Circus is reporting with confidence that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man will absolutely not die in Avengers Doomsday. We really dodged a massive bullet on that one, because if they had actually killed off Tobey's Spider-Man in Doomsday, the entire internet would have completely rioted. Now that he's confirmed safe and surviving, that means his role in Secret Wars is probably going to be even bigger and more significant than we initially thought. And that's definitely not the only exciting update we got either. Brand new leaks just dropped from Daniel RPK, saying there's still a Scarlet Witch solo project actively in development over at Marvel Studios, and it's specifically being planned for the post-Secret Wars era during what they're calling the Mutant Saga.